Hey guys, Nick here, and welcome to part 2 of my experience from moving from iOS to Android. Let's go take a look. So, in my first video, I went through very briefly my experiences from switching in just sort of the first couple of days. I've currently been using the Google Pixel, which I'm filming on right now, for just over a month now. So I'd like to sum up my thoughts and impressions. So to start with this video, I thought I'd go through sort of the important things to consider when switching platforms from iOS to Android. For me personally, it was photos and videos, making sure they came across, and just making sure I had an app for sort of every use that I was using on iOS. Apps are definitely not a problem. If you're using it on iOS, it's more than likely going to be on Android. Some apps are better on different platforms. For instance, YouTube, I find is a better app on Android. It has a few extra features. So yeah, if you're worried about not having the right app, I wouldn't worry too much. In Australia, I found that the banking app that I use most frequently on iOS is 10 times better on iOS, but it is still perfectly fine to use on Android, so I really had no sort of trouble. The one thing I did have trouble with actually is getting so used to being able to swipe back on iOS for things like Instagram and Facebook and even messengers, getting used to the back button, but I'll get to the buttons later. For your photo library, like I said in my first video, you really want to use Google Photos. It makes the transition much easier. It is relatively pain-free transferring all your photos if they're in iCloud across to Google Photos. You can kind of just set up and it runs automatically. That being said, if you're invested in the Apple ecosystem, probably, obviously stay with iCloud. But if you're not too invested, Google Photos all the way. If you want to search for an item, say like search for a guitar, it'll show you all the photos that you've ever taken that include guitars, and some without. I guess their image recognition has a tiny bit of room for error, but is amazing to use. And having used both, I find that the search function in Google is 10 times better and would show me much more photos than when using the Apple variant, their iCloud photo drive. So definitely get onto Google Photos. It makes the transition much easier. One thing I had a bit of a gripe with was the fact that Android it had a gallery and it had Google Photos separately, and getting used to that. Now I know you can set default apps for default, for taking photos and whatnot, but not every app understood this, and it would take me to the gallery app and I'd be missing photos, and so I had to go to the Google. It was just a bit of a runaround. So there's that I didn't like, but yeah, Google Photos all the way, and you won't have a single problem. Now, like I said in my first video as well, contacts, super easy to transfer across these days. There's heaps of guides online how to do it. Pretty much as long as it's attached to your Gmail account or your Google account, you're good. And even if you want to go back to iOS, it's simple. You just can export the file and import it, and once you figure out how to do it, it's pretty simple. I wish there was sort of like a one button click these days, but like I said in the first video, I didn't actually use the app transfer, so there's that. With all that said and done, you're ready to use the Android phone and not too much to worry about. You got all your contacts, got all your photos and videos, got all the apps that you use regularly, and so you can sort of enjoy the experience. The biggest thing I didn't like about the phone is the buttons. Being an iPhone user for 5+ years, I got used to just the one button and double tapping it to multitask, swiping back on apps to go back. I'm still getting used to having a back button. I don't actually use the multitasking button at all. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's muscle memory from the iPhone and not transferring that across to Android. I'm not sure, but I find I constantly go home, find the app, select the app. Yeah, it comes down to sort of muscle memory. The back button, no. I'm sure there's some sort of setting somewhere where you can swipe back in apps, but I don't want to have to dig into the settings on my phone to set it up perfectly. I kind of like it when it's intuitive. A lot of apps use the swipe function to go back. Web browsers use it, Windows, Mac, they all use it these days. It annoys me that I couldn't have that on Instagram or Facebook. It really bothered me. It still bothers me kind of now, but it's a small gripe. I got to learn to press a back button. Oh well. But there's a learning curve there. In day-to-day use, I haven't really noticed any sort of speed differences between using either device. The Google Pixel is an extremely fast phone, no real dips. I can do everything I was doing on the iPhone just as fast. Like I said, certain things would bother me in certain apps. The typing experience, for some reason I make more errors on Android. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I'm just a bad speller. But overall, I've enjoyed using the phone. You know, I think the first 2 weeks were very hard, getting used to everything. Like I said, these small gripes that I have now were huge in the first 2 weeks. But now, you know, I've sort of acclimatized a little bit, and that sort of leads me to, I guess, my final thoughts about the phone, and I guess switching to Android, is if you're an iPhone user like myself and you've been using iOS devices for years, iPads, iPhones, the lot, and you've been using them for as long as I have, and you're thinking right now that you want to delve into the world of Android, it is hard. Having used iOS for so long, we've developed muscle memory for so many different actions, we don't even think about it these days. It's literally just what we do. And it makes learning how to use Android similar to sort of learning how to ride a bike when you've never ridden one before, but say you've learned to roller skate. It's, you know, they're similar methods of transport, but it's different, and using the two is slightly different. And that's sort of what I've experienced. Is I've enjoyed it, but I've really had to push myself past things that I don't want to get used to. I don't want to use a back button. So what I've found is I'll be switching back to iOS. It has been a great experience, and I love the design of Android right now. I love where they're going. It's very clean, it's modern, and it annoys me so much because the phone, I feel, looks nicer in the hand, the apps look cleaner, but like having all these things that I'm so used to doing and not being sort of able to transfer that across has made learning it so difficult that even now I wish I had access to all those sorts of features, and so I will be switching back. If you're happy to sort of work through that for a great, different and sort of customizable experience, go ahead, switch to Android. You're not going to be disappointed. But if you're kind of thinking you just sort of want to do it for fun, I don't think you're going to enjoy it too much. You're gonna go up against a brick wall, and you're not going to want to give it the time that it really deserves. Android is one of those platforms where if you're a tinkerer and you're happy to go into the settings of everything and get it working perfectly, it's great. But for majority of people out there, you know, getting a phone that works perfectly from the get-go, you know, obviously Apple locks people out of their sort of system for a reason, and that's because you open the phone and you take a photo and it goes to this one gallery that you access, not a couple of different galleries, and you've got this one messaging app that just sort of works, and you don't have to download all these different ones to sort of get this different effect. But I don't think switching to Android's for you. But if you're happy to go through all that sort of, I guess, stress and sort of tinkering with different apps, go ahead. Like, I've really enjoyed this experience. And the only reason I'm switching back is because, I don't know, I just miss having those small features that, I guess, make using my phone, which is my most used device, simple. And that's why I'm going back. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it for this video. I hope you liked my thoughts and impressions on switching from iOS to Android. If you have any questions, drop a comment below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or even if you have your own thoughts and opinions, maybe I need to do something, try something different. Yeah, pop them down below. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to see more, subscribe. And until the next one, I'll catch you later.